I'm Samantha Anderl, co-founder of Harlow, an all-in-one tool for freelancers to manage their business. I'm a former marketing executive and also a former and current consultant for early stage tech companies. I'm joined today by my co-founder, Andrea Wilt, and Hillary Bush, founder of Pollen. Hillary's a pal of ours, and actually the entire Pollen team, they're really great. We really align because we're both focused on helping freelancers and consultants up-level their business through community and just helping them learn and guiding them on their journeys. So I'm really stoked to have Hillary with us today. And what we're going to be talking about, which fits in very nicely to all of this, is the power of continued education. So when you work in-house or you work for somebody else, often, not always, you're given opportunities to broaden your skill set, right? Whether that's through new projects, whether it's through employee training, promotions, or honestly, just being exposed to the people around you and what they're working on and what they're doing, right? But when you work for yourself, there's really no one but you to champion your continued education, your learning, your growth. You don't really have a boss or a mentor that's like checking in on you daily to make sure that you're advancing. And so I'm really excited to dig into this today because I think we all know that that learning and that growth in your career is really important to the sustainability of your business, especially as a freelancer and consultant, right? You have to continue progressing to really make this the career that you want it to be. But before we dive in any further, I'm going to turn it over to Andrea and Hillary to tell us a little bit more about themselves. Andrea, let's start with you, and then we'll turn over to Hillary.
Perfect. I'm Andrea Wilt. I'm Samantha's co-founder at Harlow and also business partner at Interimly, our consulting business. And I've been a freelancer off and on for a very long time now, over 15 years probably. And I'm really excited about this topic today because this is something that I have struggled with as a freelancer, and part of the reason why I've burned out as a freelancer and gone back in-house. So my career has been a series of freelancing, going back in-house, freelancing, going back in-house. And part of that is I personally just got burned out freelancing. I was doing a lot of the same stuff and not really learning or expanding my skill set. So I'm super excited to talk about this topic today.
I love it. And Hillary, awesome. Tell us a little bit more about you.
I love the empathy with the world of freelancing and being independent in this group. So it's a great audience to talk with. I'm Hillary Bush. I'm the founder of Pollen. Before starting Pollen, I was working in startups and always very obsessed with what I call everyday entrepreneurs, people going out, making things happen, and creating economic mobility for themselves and their families. And I worked in startups, started product and growth teams at companies like Kiva and Masterclass and Bungalow. Loved that work, had a really fun time doing it, got some big wins under my belt, and essentially started doing that as consulting, which is how a lot of people get into it. Loved the clients I was working with and loved working for myself. And went out in search of the right community and resources and continuing education that I knew I would need to make this a really long-term lucrative career. And I felt very alone with what I found. And I looked around and I saw a ton of other people like me doing the same thing. And it became very obvious that working for yourself is the new goal for the most ambitious working entrepreneurial people. And you are a business owner. And to make it a successful business, you need to surround yourself with smart people, with good examples, with good collaborators. And the fact of the matter is, it's just really hard to do that when you're completely independent. And so Pollen is really, that's the backdrop of Pollen. And we're a professional membership for independent consultants. And we really plug people in with the right community and information and programming to put we call it the best of the 9-to-5 back into your day-to-day. So you can
That's funny. Yeah.
Together.
I like that you say the best of the 9-to-5, because we were having a conversation the other day about how some of those 9-to-5 habits, the bad ones, can kind of sneak back in, right? Like the lack of boundaries, the things that the reason why you left 9-to-5 can sometimes end up showing back up in your consulting business. So I love that you reverse that and say, hey, we're kicking those bad habits, but we are going to implement some of the like the processes and the boundaries and the calendar blocking and some of these, some of these habits and rituals that actually just make your day-to-day life easier and have been proven, whether you're at a large company or whether you're working solo, right?
Totally. Yeah, and I think when people go independent, they're leaving the safety and security of their full-time job or school or whatever they're leaving, make a bet on themselves. And that's really inspiring. It's also very isolating when you don't have natural socialization of your friends at work or your manager giving you feedback or a broader mission to be a part of. That's really motivating when you're at a company. And so while it's liberating to be like a solo and a lone wolf sometimes, it can be crazy making when you're at home every day by yourself. And so we have like co-working sessions and events and things like that. So you can build that into your day-to-day and honestly enjoy the process more. Because a lot of folks go back in-house because they just want to learn and they feel like they're plateauing in their independent career. And I actually really think that this can be long-term, even more lucrative careers for people if they can continue to stay independent and always be upskilling.
Oh, absolutely. This is something that Andrea and I talked about a lot when we were first launching Harlow, is that, the freelancer, the consultant, it used to be temporary, right? Or at least a lot of people viewed it that way. They're like, oh, somebody's just consulting in between in-house roles. Somebody's just freelancing on the side. It's a side hustle. But really in the last few years, I would say even in the last 3 to 5 years, freelancing is a career. People are going into business for themselves, for the longevity of it, right? They're not saying I'm going to freelance for a year while I figure out my next move. They're like, I'm going to build a freelance business that I can work at for the next 10 to 20 years, right? And so, so things like continued education and growth and learning, those things are becoming more important than they ever have been, as these people are truly, us as a group, we've all done it, and everyone listening, everyone's like really committing to themselves and to making it a sustainable career. And that's so cool.
Yeah. You know what I think one of the coolest things is people, we talk a lot about portfolio careers within Pollen, which is people are multifaceted, multi-interested, multi-skilled, and you can create a portfolio career that reflects exactly that. And that's so cool. You can have multiple income streams associated with your name, and you can change them, you can toggle them, you can build them out, and it's completely up to you. Like, no, the future of work is it's no longer Hillary goes and works at Google and that's like my whole identity. It's Hillary and I get to build my own company under my own name that reflects exactly what I want to do. The challenging part though is like finding examples of people who have done that you really admire, and getting in touch and being like, how did you do this? How did you choose, fork A versus fork B? Like, what process did you take? What was the hard part? Because it's really like a new horizon that people are going down, and it's totally an unbeaten path, which is exciting, but can also be really draining and challenging.
Yes. And I love that you bring that up, that it's hard to find people who are having the same experience as you, because even if you're talking to other freelancers and consultants, everyone's experience and everyone's journey is still different, right? Like, I love that you brought up like this, like, what did you call it? A portfolio? Say it again.
Portfolio careers.
A portfolio career. I love that, because you're like, as a single human, you can, if you're like a content writer, you can actually write content for companies, but you also might be growing a newsletter. You might also be launching courses. You might also be doing some editing work. Maybe you're also doing mentoring work for younger freelancers, right? Like, you can build up this entire career into whatever you want it to look like. And it's so cool, but at the same time, it's so unique that it can be really difficult to find other people who are doing the exact same thing, because every journey is so individualized. Hillary, I know that you guys, so you have the concept of playbooks internally, right? And so I really want to hear about like what your most popular playbooks or discussions have been since you launched Pollen. Like, what are people really digging into? What are they finding the most fascinating?
Yeah. So the way we approach things at Pollen is we know that you're an expert at what you do, whether it's marketing, design, strategy, HR, like you got that because that's how you've unlocked consulting as a career path, is because you're a legit vetted person at that skill set. But the business side is the challenging part for you. Like you haven't been a sole business owner before. And so that's a whole other learning curve that you have to travel. And so that's where we come in. We believe in the power of collective wisdom as being completely essential to your journey. So what we do, we go out and partner with vetted experts in the worlds of self-employment and independence and consulting. And they work with us to make playbooks. This is content that you can only find on Pollen. And it's super tactical, step-by-step information about legal, finance, operations, everything under the sun that makes you an expert at running the business side of being independent. And we also connect people together in very intentional spaces on our online community to have conversations that you really cannot find on Google. You can't find on Reddit. You can't find anywhere else, because it's a place where people feel they can be authentic and vulnerable. So a lot of the conversations that we have around pricing is a huge topic. So we have people coming in actually sharing specific numbers around, hey, here's like this proposal I'm developing. Here's how I'm thinking about pricing it. Can people give me feedback? And so you're kind of open sourcing it. And I bring that up because I think that speaks to how special of a corner of the internet Pollen is, where people feel comfortable doing that. Another area that people exchange a lot of feedback on is around positioning. So part of what we do is we help consultants at kind of a transition point in their journey, whether they, the past 3 years, they've been doing it on the side and now they're moving to full-time, or the past couple of years, they've been kind of taking clients and now they really want to hone in and specialize, or they want to start working with more strategic clients. But they're all going through these periods of transition, and positioning is a huge part of that. And figuring out your positioning by yourself is also crazy making, because you're kind of staring at yourself in the mirror and trying to figure out if it's good or not. So that's another area for us. And then two other things is like mindset. So a lot of, how do you deal with ambition overwhelm? How do you deal with the good months versus the bad months? How do you stay positive? How do you continue to stay motivated when you're by yourself, and planning for the future too? Hey, I'm doing financial planning for the next 18 months. Does anybody have a model that I can copy? Or has anybody done this before and can help me out? So it's everything from the really tactical day-to-day stuff. How's this pricing, to the super strategic, how do I position myself to build the career that I want when I'm independent?
I love that you mentioned pricing specifically, because that is a topic that comes up for us constantly. And it's so interesting. I love to see the progression of the pricing conversation with freelancers. I think pricing can be a very taboo subject to bring up. And a lot of people are fearful, whether they're going to be judged because they think that they're bragging, or they're fearful because they think they're undercharging and they're going to be embarrassed. It's a really tough conversation to bring up. But there are so many beautiful insights that you can gather from your community when you gather the courage to bring up that topic, right? We actually, who wasn't recently? I think was it Kat Bogard? I think this was earlier this year. She released a newsletter that fully went through her financials for the previous year. She's like,
oh, really?
This is how much I made from freelancing. This is how much I made from my newsletter. This is how much I made from courses. This is how much I paid out to subcontractors. Like, this is what my entire business looks like. And I thought that was so incredible. And I told her that. I was like, it is so cool that you are sharing this as a woman, as a freelancer. Like, I love to see that you're talking about money, because it is so important. So important. And I'm so glad that you give people a safe space to have those conversations, because that's also really difficult to find.
Yeah, it's like taking something that you wish you had in the 9 to 5 and bringing it to this world, because there's such a lack of transparency in the broader job economy, and even worse for consultants.
Totally. And even so, you tend to see on social media, consultants saying, oh, I made $150,000, $200,000 last year, but they don't include that I also paid my subcontractors $100,000.
Yes.
So, which I think It's hard when not only when you're just starting out, but as you're trying to think about the future of your business and the future of your finances, because as a freelancer, it's like, for me, I definitely have to put more thought into my retirement and future financial planning and, how health insurance and all of those things that are just kind of taken care of with, in the 9 to 5, you're paying into Social Security, things like that. So, I just think that conversation, it's missing, and it's very hard to find on your own, almost impossible. I mean, Samantha and I were very lucky. We had a couple of colleagues that we were close with that we were able to have those conversations with, but I don't think that's the norm.
But I think it's find those trusted partners,
right?
And I think a lot of these are really, like, it's hard to, as you're becoming a business owner, you're constantly bombarded with like really deep legal and financial information, and you're scared that you're gonna like accidentally defraud the government. Like all of these things come up, and you're like, is this something worth worrying about? It's really hard without kind of a counterbalance person to talk you off the cliff, so to speak, and continue that growth mindset where it's like, okay, this is hard right now, but you're learning it for the first time, and that's why it's so difficult, and you just have to figure it out and keep moving forward. It's hard to do that even when you're on a team trying to learn a new skill, and it's doubly as hard to do that when you're completely by yourself. And oftentimes it's like, am I doing this right? I don't know.
100%.
Can someone tell me? Yeah. And can someone like show me how they did this? Those things are so important. And people oftentimes go to folks like business coaches and stuff like that, which I think serve a good purpose for a certain set of highly nuanced, deep goals, ambitions. Like I think business coaches serve a lot of roles that like a therapist does in many ways around like, what is your meaning of life? How does work fit into it? But it doesn't cover all of these tactical day-to-day things and all of this like secret insider knowledge that is just by fact of the matter of everyone being independent, decentralized. When you're used to working in a company, you get access to the corporate wiki, which has all of the best practices and how they make decisions and all of the discounts to the tools and stuff like that. Like that stuff goes out the window. And so you gain a greater appreciation for it once it's gone.
I haven't heard the term corporate wiki for a while because I haven't been in house for a very long time, and I feel like I just had a little like PTSD.
I did too, Samantha. Our last corporate wiki was a scary place.
Yeah,
it was a scary place.
Yeah, I saw you.
But it's so true. It's so true that like because I hear that from a lot of people too, and we've tried to go out and honestly consolidate some of these things. People are like, well, I don't know what communities to join. I don't know which ones are good. I don't know who to follow on Twitter and who's actually going to give me really good insight. I don't know what conferences to attend, all of these things, right? And so Andrea and I have kind of taken the approach of trying to like consolidate information for people and say like, okay, here are all of your options, and here's like what we actually think about them, and here's what we've vetted, and here's who we follow, and like here's like our insight on that, but it's still all decentralized, right? So I love that you're pulling that all into one place. And one thing that I heard you say earlier that I also want to dive into is positioning being a really hot topic for your community and Pollen users. And I think positioning is so hard. If you think about positioning broadly, like there is a very slim subset of people who are good at positioning, and those are like a very specific set of marketers, and that's their role, right? Is to figure out positioning and how to articulate value in a very clear and concise way. If you are not that type of marketer, that is not your skill set, right? And so there are so many freelancers out there that really have no idea how to position themselves in a clear, articulate way to their specific audience. And so that is hard. It was hard for Andrea and I to position ourselves and figure out how to articulate our value. And we had been doing that professionally for years for other companies, right? So I think that's a big topic that we see a lot too.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, that most people don't come from branding and marketing and positioning backgrounds.
Mm-hmm.
And even the people that do have a hard time doing it.
Yes.
And it's another area that you gain a greater appreciation for people that can do it really well. I always recommend to people, like, if you feel like, if you have this need and you're like, I really want to make more crisp how I'm describing myself to clients, and I want it to be easier to understand the services that I do, or services that I offer rather, and I want to clean up the language on my website. Those are usually like good signals that you have a positioning problem underneath it. And what I always suggest to people is kind of treat it like you know, go through a user research process where you think about who are all the types of clients that I could work with, and what are all the different services that I could offer. Think about what do you like, and then focus on those services, and go and talk to either existing or potential clients and just ask what their needs are, what their problems are, what they need help with. And you'll start to notice themes in how they describe those things, like specific words that they use. And you'll start to notice when they have really excruciating problems and kind of like, whatever, yeah, it's a problem, but I don't really care. You want to sell to those excruciating problems because that'll help you charge more. And you want to use the words that they use when they're describing those excruciating problems. And that's usually like the most efficient path to figuring out, what are the words that I use to describe my services? What should I put on my website? And then sharing that with people to get feedback is always very helpful too. So we do a lot of conversations like this within Pollen, and it's like, hey, taking these outside business principles that startups and other companies use around customer discovery and user research, and applying it to this business model, which is self-employment and independence.
Because I think,
go ahead, Andrea.
I was going to say, I think other freelancers can also be hugely valuable there, right? The things that they see going on in their client companies. And it's like, well, I don't do this, but this is funky, and I don't know who else to call to solve this problem.
Yeah, absolutely. Or finding other people with brands that you really admire, that you think do a good job. Having those aspirational brands is super important.
Yes. Okay, we've talked a lot about like the power of continued education, right? And we've also talked a lot about how hard all of these things can be, how hard pricing and positioning and forward planning. And I think when you say the words continued education, it can be a little scary for freelancers and consultants, right? Because we all know when you're a freelancer and you're a consultant, you are really in the weeds. You are trying to pitch new clients, you're winning new clients, you're onboarding them, you're doing client work, you're delivering, projects, you're doing all these things. And so it can be really hard to take a step back and make time to do these things, right? Make time to really like streamline your business, make things more efficient, make yourself more findable, whatever it is. So if you were going to give some advice to freelancers and consultants about how to just dip their toes in, right? Like, what are some like easy ways they can start with continued education and continued learning?
Yeah, I think the word education is very intimidating because I don't believe that people should actually take online classes for the most part. Like, I don't think it's a very efficient use of time. And we don't have, like, we're not like a Coursera. What we say is you learn by doing, and you learn through practice. And we have all of the information that's ready for you when you need that specific thing. We have the programming that's going to actually do work. You're going to get work done as you're doing it, rather than being like, I need to dedicate 2 hours this week to go watch this course about this topic. Because the reality is you're only going to retain the stuff that you're immediately going to use. And so when you do the course, you actually have a lot of time that could be used more efficiently or more productively. So my biggest advice is learn by doing, and also by finding examples of others and building the orbit of people around you, because that's really like going to determine your information diet. And getting good sources of advice is going to be the best way to upskill. And so that's how we approach it at Pollen. What we have is the right orbit of people that you can surround yourself with, who can help you with all of the day-to-day stuff and all of the strategic stuff as it comes up. You can search through all of the collective wisdom of people who have experienced those things before you. You can tap into all of the templates and playbooks that we've developed to predict those needs that you have, and you can use them when you need them. And then you can also enroll in the programming that's going to help you acquire discrete skills super quick. Negotiation, pricing, taxes, legal, client communication. And there's these small snippets that you can fold into your habits on the day-to-day. So you don't feel like you need to enroll in this big long cohort program
all at once
or anything like that. Like, just so much time. So I'd say, like, the way that you're going to learn the most is by lining up those moments of upskilling and learning towards specific moments in your business. And it's going to be the best way to learn.
Yeah. You going down that path got me thinking about proactive versus reactive planning, right? So like reactive is, I have this problem in my business and I have to solve it to move forward. So I'm going to go seek out an answer for it. And proactive planning would be, okay, I know that I'm building a business and there are probably things that I don't know. So I'm going to proactively go out and get the answers so that I am set up for success. When people come to Pollen, are they typically reactive or proactive? Or is it a mix?
Totally an investment in the future. Yeah, it's totally an investment in the future. And people come to Pollen for a transformation. Like, we deliver them a transformation, but the fact of the matter is there's no linear path.
Right.
So like, the thing is, like, there's no, like, here are the 10 steps that everybody follows through in this exact order. That's just not realistic towards any entrepreneurial endeavor. So we're not even going to try and like force you through that, because you're an adult and you can like create these plans. Like, we're not in school anymore. You're a business owner.
Yep.
And so when they come to Pollen, they're making an investment in the future. And what we say is, hey, whenever there's something that you need to figure out, we've got you covered. We have everything that will make you an expert in the business side of running your business, because we already know you're an expert at that skill.
Yeah.
And then we also give people accountability and rhythm similar to their team. So we have co-working sessions, we have strategy shares, we have pitch nights. We have accountability groups every single month. And so they get into this natural rhythm of planning and moving forward. So it really is an investment in the future that's valuable on the day-to-day.
I love that. I also like that you continue to bring up like this concept of like a nonlinear path, right? It's something that Andrea and I talk about all the time, and something that I have to constantly remind myself of as a consultant, as a small business owner, that life is not linear. The problems that we have are not linear. The highs and lows are not linear. Like, we always want to go up and to the right, but it's not, that's not how it works. Right. And so I think it's really important, specifically, that companies and communities and whoever is supporting this audience of freelancers and consultants, that they address that. Right. And they're like, it's okay if you don't go from making $10,000 to $20,000 to $30,000 to $40,000 a month in this very linear fashion and work your way up. That's not how life works. But we are going to help you figure out like how to solve specific issues in your business so that you can grow and make this sustainable, right? But doing so in a non-linear fashion, where you're not like, read our 3 playbooks and go from making $50,000 to $100,000, right? Like,
if only it was that easy.
Yeah. Like, I think that's like one of the, if you go look at different offerings out there, like, there's a lot of scams.
Yeah.
And they guarantee that it's like, make $100,000 from your Facebook app on your phone. You're like, there's no way that this nets out that way.
Yeah. You're like, would love to. Yeah.
Yeah. It only costs $99,000 in advertising.
Yeah. And I think that there's a lot of like noise and sketchy offerings out there, to be honest. And so what we do is the complete opposite. I often say that people go through cycles of reinvention, and I'm like making this thing because you go through this like period of stability, and then every like 2 years, you're like, I want to shake it up. I want to change the work that I do. I want to make more money. I want to have more free time, whatever it is. I want to open up a new line of revenue. I want to start an online class, I want to write a newsletter, whatever. And then that's a cycle of reinvention. Those are the periods of time where you really need the like the programming, the information, the new examples to get you to that next phase. And then you do that for a few years, and you still need the people around you to help you fine tune that, hone that in. And then you go through another cycle of reinvention. And usually towards the end, that's when people have these portfolio careers. Yeah. And it's totally custom to them. Like no two people have the same thing. It's like a fingerprint. And so you need the constant source of information around you so you can always stay inspired and do what feels good, because that's the beauty of working for yourself. You can do whatever you want.
Yes.
And so like it's not about enroll in this course and make $100,000 in a week from now. It's about surround yourself with information that's going to constantly inspire and motivate and push you so you can really be strategic and intentional about what's this next phase that I'm moving towards and why is this right for me.
Yes. I love that you're talking about like the different phases and stages of a freelance career, because I've experienced that firsthand, right? You know, Andrea and I launched our business. You know, we're launching interimly, we're launching a consulting business. It's really fun and it's really exciting. And we're starting here with this type of client. And then you get a year in and you're like, whoa, this is actually not manageable. I need to shift things. I need to change things. Here's what I've learned. Here's what I know that I need to figure out. And so there are all of these inflection points on a freelancer's journey where they realize that, oh, it is time to grow and learn and understand myself and my business better. And it's really cool that you're supporting them in that, right? And it's hard to do because there are a ton of different inflection points in a freelancer's journey, right? There's early inflection points, later inflection points. Like there's a lot of distance between launching your freelance career and getting to what you're calling like this portfolio career, right?
Yeah, it's a journey and it's like Candyland.
Yes.
But the way to get there is like right information at the right time.
Yeah. Right.
Like you can't plan all, like there's no business plan that's you're gonna be able to follow to the T.
Yes, even though some of us want that. I know Andrea and I, we're big planners, and we're always like, okay, how do we plan for making X dollars next year while working this amount of hours while keeping our boundaries intact and only working on projects that we really love? Okay.
Yeah.
How do we make that happen?
Growing this other business. Yeah.
Yeah. And growing this other business on the side and also growing this database. And in reality, it's a lot of like moving and doing and learning as you go and shifting.
Yeah. I think it's good to have a goal. And that's what it is, you know, and there's many paths to that goal and you're going to have to shift. And it's, you know, that's the entrepreneurial process, in my opinion.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that a lot of freelancers and consultants are more likely to refer to themselves as entrepreneurs now. I feel like there used to be some hesitation in saying like, I own a small business. I am an entrepreneur, you know, and that is the truth. If you're a freelancer or a consultant, you are an entrepreneur. You are a small business owner, and it's a serious and very respectable career path. And I think everything that we're talking today ties into that, right? That it's a very respectable career path. It's a career path that's sustainable if you take the time to learn and to grow and to invest in yourself and make that happen.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think it's like the new goal, as I said earlier in this conversation. Like I was waiting for coffee this morning in the cafe in Brooklyn, and I overheard two people talking behind me, and he's like, they were just chatting about work culture. He's like, yeah, I'm either, you know, going to work remotely or going to work for myself. Like I get to choose. And I think the reality, like over the past 5 years, that choice has emerged for itself. But all of the support systems and networks and tools and information sources are lagging. And so you know, that's where we come in, is really supporting and validating these people's careers, because they are very, very real.
I love that. I love the word validating. Like this is, even if something's confusing and even if you're feeling like you're not good at it at first, or you don't know how to make it happen, it's still valid. You're going to get there. It just takes work and you putting the time and effort into it. I love that. I love the word valid. I love the word validation. Yes. Well, I know that we've touched on a lot all over kind of like continued education and Pollen specifically. Are there any other, tips, tricks from either of you, Andrea or Hillary, like any other advice for freelancers as they're thinking about just learning and growing their business and their careers?
My top advice is to really be thoughtful and invest in the people that you surround yourself with, because those are going to be the people that help you make this a long-term, super viable career path, because you'll get good information. You will maintain a sense of camaraderie and momentum and feeling of being on a team. And also, very practically speaking, you're going to get more referrals. So if you build your network of other consultants and freelancers and these folks, you'll be able to find collaborators who can take on bigger projects, more interesting projects. You can loop them into your work. They'll loop you into theirs. And we often find that people with really healthy funnels as consultants get up to 50% of their work from referrals from other consultants. And so it's super important that you spend a lot of time and invest in quality networks so you can get all of those things.
The power of community. I mean, Andrea and I experienced that firsthand in our business. We were actually just talking about this the other day. But when we were running interimly, like from the very beginning, our first clients were former colleagues. And then those former colleagues introduced us to people at venture capital and private equity firms. And our next set of clients were those people's portfolio companies. And then our next set of clients was those portfolio companies referring us to other people that they knew, right? And so it's just like this network and community grows as you grow your consulting business, but it's so important to put in the time and effort and to just communicate and let people know what you're doing and what you're good at. And also, like you said, it's also about giving back, right? It's not just about like taking from this referral network and from this community. It's about giving and making sure that you're also referring people out, that you're also doing people favors, and that you're really building up that true, I think you said the word camaraderie, which is another word that I really, really love, right? Like just truly building that relationship that is very two-sided.
Yeah, the other thing is people, independents, really, a lot of them hate self-promotion and selling themselves, which is totally valid.
And Andrea is a perfect example of that. Yep.
I've just been around a long time, so I have a lot of old connections.
Yeah, and like there's a lot of you never know who you're adjacent to on LinkedIn or Twitter or anything like that. And oftentimes it just feels a little ick selling yourself, but whatever floats your boat. But for the people that really don't like self-promotion, there's another way to build your network and build your brand, and it's through mutual support in communities. So going in, really investing time in these communities, helping people, responding to their questions with authentic, helpful advice, and letting them get to know you and learn to trust you before you even have a sales conversation or a referral conversation. It really reduces the amount of selling that you ever have to do if you just build these networks of trust through like real human interaction along the way. And it's easy to do, and it makes you feel good, and it has a ton of really positive secondary effects. So that is one of our core values at Pollen, is to lead with generosity and to give where you take. And the result of that is that it's created a very supportive environment where there's no sense of competition between people. People get responses to their questions within an hour. People are super engaged. People are referring each other all the time. And ultimately you get information that you can't get anywhere else. And you also build your network. So you have expanded reach, potential clients, collaborators, all that kind of stuff.
I love that. I love a lot of the things that you're saying. I'm like, yes, like community over, or like collaboration over competition, camaraderie, give more than you take. These are all like standards that like I really try to live by, and that we also try to really instill into Harlow and also our consulting business. It's a mindset and it's an attitude that is going to get you really, really far as a freelancer and consultant. If you, and they sound simple, right? But it really is just like shifting your mindset and getting in that space and thinking about your business and other people's businesses that way.
Couldn't agree more. Couldn't
I
agree
love it.
more.
Andrea, anything else to add on your end?
Nope, I think that's the perfect note to end on.
I love it. I love it. Well, Hillary, okay, you and Pollen, if people are listening in and they want to get in touch with you or they want to find out more, where can they go?
So our website is runpollen.com, runpollen.com. You can learn more about us there, and you can apply for membership there as well. Other places to learn more, we're on Twitter, Pollen Careers, and on LinkedIn. You can find us or find me on either of those platforms. My name's Hillary Bush. So I look forward to meeting people, and this was a great conversation. So thank you for inviting me, and great to catch up with both of you. I love being in this world with each of you.
Yes, it's so great. And for everyone, I don't think I mentioned this initially, but like we've all kept in touch for a really long time. We're all building businesses at the same time, consulting at the same time. And so speaking of community and camaraderie, we've all been having these conversations for a really long time. So I'm stoked that you joined us today. And if you want to find out more about Harlow, or you want to get in touch with, I'll say myself, because Andrea is not quite as active on social media. We just talked about this. I'm the queen of self-promotion. Andrea is not. But you can find Harlow on all social media. It's at Meet Harlow. So Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, TikTok, all of those. And then you can also find me on the same platforms at Samantha Anderl. If you have a message for Andrea, send it my way, and I'll make sure she sees it.
You can find me on LinkedIn. I am just a testament that you can build a successful freelance and consulting business without being very present on social media.
You can be an introvert and still build a very, very successful business.
Exactly.
I love it. Well, thank you two so much. This was super fun.